2, 1.
Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Online at madeformorerealty.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
On today's show is a very, very special guest. In fact, when I first moved to Sacramento, I remember rolling around in my Toyota Tacoma pickup truck, listening to the audiobook and going, man, this is such a great idea. Why are more real estate agents not doing this? It'd be so cool to implement this someday. Fast forward, not only have I implemented it, but my story is also included in the revised version of this book. And now on the show today is the author of The Golden Handoff, Nick Krautter. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. Good to talk to you.
Dude, this is honestly like a full circle moment for me. Like I vividly remember sipping on my black Starbucks coffee and going, this like my mind was blown. I was swerving all over the road. I was all excited. I was like, why are more people not doing this? So do you mind just sharing a little bit, before we get into the nitty gritty about your backstory and kind of why you ended up writing The Golden Handoff?
Yeah. So The Golden Handoff, like you said, is basically a game plan of how to buy the business of another agent that is looking to either slow down, relocate, or retire from real estate. The revised edition's been out just about a year now, and that has a game plan to get connected even sooner before an agent's ready to truly retire. And the original book was about agents fully exiting because all the businesses I was buying it was during the recession. So 2010 to 2012 was really when I did the most in the acquisition phase. And then I kind of built this big machine, and my challenge then was to grow the team and have enough agents to serve all those clients, because we had grown from 200 clients to 2,000 clients in just a couple years. And when I say clients, I don't mean leads. I mean people that have relationships, that take our calls, that read our newsletter, that come to our events, those types of things. So
that's what I was going to say. It's very different. You're not buying Google leads or Zillow leads. Like these are people that have relationships with the entities and the businesses and the people, that they've worked with, right?
Yeah.
That you've now bought. So you were a newer agent in Portland, right? And you were getting started. And then how did you stumble across the idea of buying another realtor's book of business?
So one of my really good friends is in the book. So there's 3 characters in the book. Those are all real people that I worked with, and they kind of have different stories. And the first one was Renee, and she literally had the office next to mine. So we shared a wall, and we were very good friends. She had a very solid referral business, higher price point. She's, I think, 10 years older than me. So, I was starting out in my late 20s. She was in her late 30s. So my clients were buying their first home. Her clients were buying their big, nice, fancy home in the good school district. And so I always really admired her, and she started a family. And so she decided to transition into like more of a corporate job and have kind of, normal 9 to 5 hours, have her weekends back, because she was raising 2 kids. And I said, hey, I'd love to help your clients. And I didn't have a plan. I just knew she had this amazing group of people that she had really good relationships with. And I was hoping to work with her. She actually said no. She said, you're too busy, you're too successful. And in her mind, she was worried I wouldn't give her clients enough time because I was busy with all of my own clients. And I was like, well, I'm going to do for your clients what I do for my clients, and I'll keep growing my business. So she hired someone else who was struggling, thinking, oh, well, this guy isn't that busy, so he'll have more time. But the problem is people that aren't busy and aren't doing well are usually there for a reason.
Yep.
And 6 months later, she found out the reason was that this guy was not calling his clients, and he didn't call her clients. And he didn't set appointments. And when he did, he asked her to come along because he didn't have the confidence to go on a listing appointment and do a buyer consultation on his own. And so after 6 months, she's like, geez, now I'm working 2 jobs.
Yep.
Because every time something comes up, I've got to jump back in. She knew she was losing people, so she was kind of trying to still nurture, but she didn't really have time because now she's working a full-time job somewhere else that was very demanding. And she came back and said, look, it's not working. Do you think it's too late if we switched and you took over? And I said, absolutely not. It's only been 6 months. Most people haven't even thought about you. They haven't moved. Buying it's on real estate, it's not on the radar for 95% of your clients. So let's just reset. Let's figure out what went wrong and try to fix it. And that really became the process that I talk about in the Golden Handoff. And again, it's not complicated. It's just the retiring agent is endorsing you to their clients. And then you have a marketing plan that probably looks a lot like the marketing plan for that retiring agent of, what did they do to stay in touch? Events, calls, newsletters. Now with video, social media, there's a lot of other ways to stay connected. I started this in 2010 was when I bought her business. Social media was just becoming a thing. It wasn't even really that big of a thing in real estate. I was doing video tours of houses, but we had to use an actual camcorder and then put it on a computer and edit it.
Yep.
There was no YouTube online editing and using your phone, and it became much easier. But there's a lot more tools to stay connected to people these days. And so we did that.
So when you bought her business, though, like, did you end up putting any money down, or was it completely seller financed, or what did that look like for the first one?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I hear this all the time, and I think this is one of the reasons a lot of realtors that try to do this with a traditional business sale model, it doesn't work, because it's very difficult to value a real estate business. Because when you take your top salesperson out of the business, what's left, right? So it's your relationships and really the value of your endorsement, and then the work of the new agent, right? How much work are they putting in? And I go over all these variables, but no, there's no money up front. It's all based on referral fees. And so I didn't need to write a big check. I didn't need to take a big risk. And because of that, she was committed to making sure that this worked and helped me really go through her database and know who everyone was. And, she was in 2010 when the average price of a home in Portland was probably a little over $200,000. She was getting $3,000 to $4,000 a month in referral fees. Now, that might not sound like a lot today, but the average price of a home in Portland is 3 times what it was then. So just 3x that referral income. So that today would be $9,000 to $12,000 a month of referral fee income with zero cost and zero overhead, because I'm paying for everything now, right? So that's the cost. Is I'm sending out more newsletters, I'm hosting bigger events. I need to hire more people to make more phone calls to more clients. So it's not a freebie, because you could maybe buy your first business and just work more. But once you buy that second one, you have to have a plan for scaling and having more agents and more support. And so that's the cost, but the upside is so high. Do the math too, right? So I said, in today's numbers, $9,000 to $12,000 a month of referral income. Well, that's the 25%, right? So I'm keeping the 75%.
Correct.
And so all of a sudden, we added a couple $100,000 a year of income to the business. So now I've got a lot more income to invest in better systems, better tools, better marketing, get really good support staff, pay them well. And that's what we did. I actually hired Renee's assistant when she transitioned out of real estate, because I was growing and I needed more help. And she was really skilled and already knew all these clients. So it was that first one ended up being pretty seamless. And
was that
for
one
not
of the better
really
ones, or was it?
It was, because she had a smaller client list, but really deep relationships. And she was virtually almost 100% by referral. So
Wow.
I would say that people ask me, like, well, is there a business that's too small, or is there a business that's not worth buying? I would say the only red flag for me is if someone has a successful business, but it's all prospecting and marketing based, and they don't have follow-up referral and repeat clients, then they're doing a good job getting people in the door and getting the deals done, but they're not necessarily nurturing those relationships. And so the more an agent does a good job nurturing relationships, that's going to show up in a high percentage of repeat and referral business.
Yep.
And so whatever anyone says to you, or whatever they're trying to tell you they're doing, you look at the source of their business, and you'll get a very good picture of where are they investing their time and energy, and what's working.
So this is something, I've talked about, and obviously I've done personally. But as I'm out there looking for more people to do this with, because there's a lot of retire. Like the average age of a real estate agent just continues to climb,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of people who are looking to get out. But at the same time, I'm having a hard time finding people who would want to take this next step. When you were buying all these businesses, in 2010, 2012, how did you find more people to partner with?
After that first partnership with Renee had some time in it, a couple months, and we were seeing really consistent activity. I was getting a lot of appointments. I wasn't competing for business because that referral, that endorsement meant a lot to these clients because she'd invested in that relationship. My team leader and the manager of my office started connecting me with people because they knew of everyone that was slowing down or was going to move across the country or, retire in a traditional sense or relocate into a different, change into a different business. And, no one was thinking of selling these businesses. So in a sense, it's the easiest thing in the world because you're approaching an agent who doesn't believe that their business has really sellable value, or they don't know how to do it. They think it should be worth something, but they don't really have a model. And a lot of the leadership isn't really providing help. Now the Golden Handoff's been out 10 years, which is wild. Next month will be 10 years exactly. A lot of people in the leadership now are aware of this. And so they'll be like, you should read this book or listen to some podcasts or something about it. But early on for me, and I would say even now, the majority of people don't have a plan. And so if I approach an agent that's retiring or wants to slow down, and I say, hey, I can help create this wonderful income stream for you. And I'll take the risk. I'll take on all the costs. You can eliminate every business expense you have other than keeping a license, which in most states is a couple $100 a year. I wouldn't call that an investment. It's like less than a TV, subscription.
Exactly.
So you're solving this problem they don't know they even have, and you're giving them a way to unlock all this value. And if you can take over the process so when the letter goes out to their clients from the retiring agent, I'm actually the one doing that. So it's on the retiring agent's letterhead. It's from them. They sign it, but my team's printing the envelopes, printing the letters, and sending them out. Whether we're doing that, at the office or whether we're hiring a company to do that, we're managing and handling and paying for that whole rollout, that whole, handoff process.
Yep.
And so we try to make it as easy as possible for these retiring agents so that they don't have to put a lot of time and effort into it. Because that's something that I see a lot is by the time someone's ready to retire, they're so burned out that the idea of even trying to like clean up their database sounds so overwhelming. They kind of like give up and hide. But
Yep.
it's not hard now to do it, right? You can step in and help solve that problem for them and make it easy, and that really unlocks that relationship. But the biggest mistake I made, and the reason why I did a new edition is, and I've spoken to this a million times, but I treated agents who are retiring just like you treat a home seller. Sometimes you call them and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you thought of me. I've been trying to solve this problem. I want to do this. I've been wanting to do this for a while. Can we meet today? And I've literally had that happen where I explain what I can do and someone wants to meet right away, that day or tomorrow, and we have a deal and we're executing the process right away. But then the flip side is, just like a home seller is like, hey, we'd love to work with you. We do want to move, but our kids are in high school. And so until the last kid graduates from high school in 4 years, we're going to be here. And so you just check in every year. And then in year 4, you're like, okay, now we can sell your house. You can downsize. Well, I didn't have a plan for all those people that weren't ready yet. And the new version of the book has a whole section about partial handoffs. And to me, that is the key to unlocking it so much earlier, because you don't have to have it be 100% in or out. So you can talk to someone who is slowing down and is phasing out of the business kind of naturally. And by the way, they're losing clients because they're not engaging.
I was talking to a guy yesterday or recently, and he's like, man, I wish I would have met you a few years ago. My business would have probably been worth a whole lot more, but I've just been coasting, spending time with the grandkids. And I'm like, well, maybe we can get it back up. If we re-engage your database, maybe we can get some increase in those sales.
Absolutely, especially too, like in, every market cycle is different, but we're in kind of a long market cycle. People are staying in their homes longer right now for interest rate reasons, for economic reasons. There's a lot of different components to why right now we're in kind of a long cycle. Whereas around COVID, we were in this ultra rapid cycle where people were getting in and out of homes super fast. I mean, I know people that were moving every year or every other year from 2020 on, and now people are kind of hunkered down. So for that example, yeah, that business, he might not be engaging with it, but I doubt they're doing that much.
Mm.
And so if you can reconnect now, you're still going to be in front of that decision for most of those clients. Not all of them, but most of them. But the partial handoff allows you to find someone like that and say, hey, you don't have to quit. Like, who are the top 20 or 50 or 100 clients you love and want to work with and are excited to call and excited to engagement, and you want to take to meet for coffee or lunch or do a little meet up or whatever. Why don't you just keep your best, deepest relationships that you enjoy the most, your A plus people, but this whole huge long list of other people that were good clients but you just didn't engage with for some reason, or they're not as responsive, or they don't really need anything right now, and so you haven't called them because they told you they're going to stay in the house for 20 years, so you're not bothering them. Those are all the people that you can help. It might look like a certain neighborhood. It might look like they want to keep a certain price point. It might look like, hey, I want to do listings, but I don't want to work with buyers. So now you're handling all the buyers and they're not losing them.
What I'm hearing you say too, though, is having that intermediator, that trusted person to connect the agent that wants to buy the book and the agent that wants to sell the book of business. That really helps bridge the gap, because that's kind of what I'm running into. The one lead that I'm working right now, he's like, oh, I know Tom Daves. We work way back. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Talk to Tom. Tom will tell you all about how it went down and if he thinks I'm worth partnering with, and or if he would do it again. And so it just sounds like if somebody's looking to grow the side of their business, they probably need to find those connectors, those people that can help bridge, because the cold connection is really scary for people who are 60, 65, 70, and now talking about retiring to somebody that they've never met before.
Yeah, it is. But I think if you can meet them, it's just like meeting a home seller you haven't met. It's like you have a client that, oh, my neighbor's going to move. I gave him your number. There's no deep relationship yet. You have to show up and establish that. Sure. Now, once you start, like you asked, how did I find those? Well, after the first one, which I kind of figured out on the, we kind of made up a plan. It wasn't like made up maybe is a little bit dismissive. We had a good plan, but there was no model we could follow. So I had to like kind of create a plan, a succession plan, and an endorsement plan, introduction plan. And all that got wrapped up and became the Golden Handoff. Is like, after I did it a bunch, we were able to give it kind of a name and define it. But once you start doing that, like you said, Tom Daves, well, Renee would tell people, oh my gosh, Nick's doing a great job. I'm getting checks every month. My clients are happy. They thank me. Because your clients are all going to go find another realtor, and some of them will find a good one, and some of them will find someone that isn't that good or is brand new and it doesn't have experience. And, the retiring agents do care about their clients. They do care about someone doing a good job and being honest and fair and putting in the work and giving them the same level of care that they gave them, or hopefully better. Yeah.
That's what I want to touch on too, is that this is really, like, a lot of these people, they've helped parents, children, grandkids buy properties. Like these are deep relationships, and just the idea, like, just because you don't know what to do with it, those relationships can fall by the wayside. But now if you have an agent that's, willing to put in the work and partner with them and treat them with the same level of respect that you did for the last 10, 20, 30 years, that is a great benefit to those clients as well. So it's just a win all the way around, a win for the selling agent, buying agent, and a win for the clients.
Absolutely. And the example I like to use is, dentists have a really, really consistent plan for most of dentists will buy into a practice. Then they'll take over. The old dentist who's retiring will eventually, work together for a couple of years, and then they'll leave.
Yep.
And then now that new dentist is going to run that practice for probably, 20 something years, 30 years. And then they're going to find a new dentist. They're going to sell that practice to that dentist. But as the client, when you're going to get your teeth cleaned or you need a cavity or you crack your tooth, you're going to the same doctor's office. Most of the time, it's the same front desk staff. It's the same, hygienists and techs and assistants, but the dentist changes, right? But I don't know anyone where you show up at your dentist's office and they just all disappeared, right? Because they all have in their model, it's just baked into that business is you're going to go to school, you're going to go buy a business to get started. You're not going to just like put up a sign and hope that people walk in and need their teeth cleaned.
Start from scratch.
Right. So you start with this huge head start, but in real estate, we often don't do that. And it's kind of crazy. Same thing with insurance and financial planning. People buy into businesses. They either buy them completely or they start out as a junior partner and then eventually take over.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's different structures for those different businesses, but the idea is the same, is that this does have value. And I think the partial handoff kind of allows you to work together for a while. And to your question of, how do you build that rapport and trust? Well, hey, so you can tell someone, hey, I know you don't know me and we haven't worked together, but here's some client testimonials. If you've bought businesses, you can use the retiring agents' testimonials or have them endorse you to other agents, which is very powerful. But you could also say, hey, I'm just starting to do this. Why don't you give me 10 or 20 buyers that you don't really want to work with? And let's see what I can do. Let's do a little mini version of this. You're going to endorse me to these 20 people, and I'm going to take over, and here's our marketing plan. And the marketing plan needs to be a part of the contract. The contract lays out how long you're going to, work together, what the referral fee is, but also what activities are you guaranteeing you're going to do? Show me your marketing plan. How many times you're going to call? How many events are you going to host? How often are you going to email a newsletter? Are you going to mail stuff to people? Are you going to do classes? What kind of community engagement are you going to do? So for every agent, that's going to be slightly different, but you want to make sure that you and the other agent agree on that plan, because the key really is on executing on the plan.
Yeah.
Assuming you can relate to people and you can help people buy and sell real estate and you're already running this like a real business.
Correct. And that kind of goes into like your philosophy on database management too, though, right? Because the better you manage the database, the more valuable that asset is when you go to sell it.
100%. So the better the basic information, meaning like you have correct phone numbers and emails and addresses and names, then the next level would be that you have kind of a history of the client and you have an idea of what you think they're going to do next. So I use tags to do that. And then we use a database system called Follow Up Boss, which has really good capacity to like record emails and notes, and you can take notes for your phone calls and you can share that with your team. And so, I'm able to log in to my database and do all of that. But I also have a login for basically a copy of that's in the database for the team I sold my business to. So later today, I'm going to log into that database and go through my top 100 people and like actually go through and personally call a lot of those folks in the database I have that's now being managed by another team.
And what I like about Follow Boss too is like, so when I partnered with Tom, is I had his entire database either tagged or assigned to him.
Yeah.
So that way, and then I made him a user in the account.
Perfect.
So then,
yeah.
Even though I had my own leads, my own database, and my other agents in there, he could see everything pertaining to his asset that he had, that we'd partnered on, and he could see how many times people were being called, how many times they were being followed up, what was being said, and it just provided a lot of transparency throughout that process. Which I don't know, you've done this way more times than I have, but I think the transparency in terms of people getting along and it being a successful partnership, that was huge for Tom and I.
I think it's great. I mean, I think a lot of times people have a really big concern of like, okay, well, yeah, maybe you're a great salesperson. You say you're going to do all this stuff, but how can you prove that you're actually doing it? Well,
show me.
Yeah. Show me what you're really doing, because anyone can talk about what they're going to do, but, show me what you're really doing. And so that's the easiest way to do it. And if not, you can just give a report like, hey, we called X number of people, we set X number of appointments, and we have, these are our active buyers and our active listings and our pendings. But I did it exactly the same way you're talking about, which is tagging and sourcing that entire client list to that retiring agent so that you can do custom marketing to them. So you could do a series of videos, and you could do it like you could take 10, 20 minutes and record, 4 or 5 videos that you use throughout the year and send it just to that list of clients that are connected to that retiring agent. Mm-hmm. And now you're providing this very like bespoke custom experience, very like consistent, deep relationship building and maintaining stuff, but it doesn't have to be really difficult if you organize it and structure it so that you can easily access, okay, here's the 500 clients that came from Tom or Renee or whoever you're working with, and you can have a different message to all of those folks without having it be a huge lift on either of your parts.
I agree, and like you said, Follow Boss is a great tool for that. I'm sure there's other tools out there. But when we come back, so far, just to recap, we've talked about buying businesses, how to partner with the agents, read the book, read the Golden Handoff. It has a lot of great info. And then we talked about kind of database management a little bit. But when we come back, this is all, building towards an eventual exit for you, because not only did you buy other agents' businesses, but you also ended up selling your business and are now living the dream down in La Quinta, right?
That's right. Yeah, I get to play a lot of golf now.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about that. One moment.
Well, I don't know about you, but very rarely do I run into someone in this world who is friendly, nice, genuine, honest, trustworthy, while at the same time, very shrewd when it comes to business and finding great deals. Well, you know what? That, my friends, is Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty. Not only is he a friendly guy, honest, trustworthy, genuine, but he's also very shrewd when it comes to real estate, knows how to get you the best deals for the most amount of money in the fastest amount of time. He's got an arsenal of tools and resources to help you every step of the process. He's going to make it easy and simple for you. So if that's who you're looking for to sell your home, reach out. Just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings. Online at madeformorerealty.com.
So we are back with Nick Krautter, the author of The Golden Handoff, and a phenomenal book about how agents can acquire other agents' books of businesses, and how if you're looking to retire and escape the rat race a little bit, you can actually sell your books of businesses to other agents, similar to how dentists sell their practices. And what Nick and I, so in the first part of the show, we were talking about how to identify agents, how to partner with agents, kind of what that structure would look like. But now, let's say you found a couple of businesses, you've now done some partnerships. What's next on the horizon? Like, what's next in this game plan, Nick?
So I was really lucky early on in my career to get just awesome mentorship. And there was 5 different principal brokers at my firm that all had very different takes on how to run their businesses and how to meet clients and how to promote and market yourself and build a true business. And so there was different components of that. I remember Morgan Davis told me, he's like one of the top Buffini people ever. He said, work by referral. And I said, Morgan, I know 5 people in Portland. What do I do after I talk to those 5 people this morning? But it was good advice. He said, you'll really enjoy this business longer if you work by referral, because it's more relational and people care about you, and you're not trying to just be the cheapest, fastest thing in the market. People want to work with you because they trust you. Another one, Randy Ingfer taught me how to do open houses, which was how I started to meet people before I was buying businesses. And then a couple other brokers were really good about, hey, don't eat, wear, or drive everything you make. Make sure you're investing in real estate along the way. And I was told, like, again, housing and apartments and everything was quite a bit cheaper in 2006 when I started. But they said, have the goal of buying a rental every year. And if you can't, try to buy one every 2 years, because some years are going to be better than others. But, live within your means. take care of your clients, actually have a database, because back then a lot of people didn't even have anything. They were kind of just winging it. And this is before iPhones too. That's how old I am. And so it was a little bit more difficult to manage that and you had to be more intentional. I think now there's so many tools to make it easy. If you're not doing it, you're really, really kind of missing out. So as I'm growing my business and building a database, I think number one, the biggest asset you have is your client list while you're running your business, because that is the lifeblood of how you connect and manage consistently with the people that know you and trust you and are going to refer you and work with you.
Yeah, it's your book. It's your book of business.
That's your number one asset.
Yep.
I don't care how much stuff you own. That's going to be the thing that creates the most revenue while you're working.
Yep.
But while you're working, you want to start building and start having the benefit of compounding growth from interest and from real estate and, stocks and bonds. I don't think you should own just one category. I realized I had gotten very, very heavy into single family homes and plexes in Portland, Oregon. And so my whole business was there and all my rentals were there. And so I decided to start diversifying. And so I sold some of the rental houses and some land I owned, and I bought an office building in Boise. I had eventually bought my office building in Portland because we were running out of space. And so I set up bought my own building for my team. We had, 14 people in the team. So we had our own building for the team, which was really great. And I bought that and owned that. And then, I had nice houses, but I never had crazy nice houses. I would always try to find like a fixer in a good neighborhood and fix it up. I never had like a big showy mansion or anything on the river. So I'm kind of a believer that your house shouldn't be your most expensive asset. Not everyone agrees with that. There's some really cool tax benefits for primary residences. So I'm sure someone could teach you how to buy mansions and get rich by, trading every couple years. But that's not the path I took. I didn't want to have that stress of a huge mortgage and a huge tax bill. So I'd say take care of your database, really try to engage and manage those relationships over time, and really truly care for your clients and try to find the solutions that are right for them when they're right for them. And then the second piece is, really try to make a little bit of extra money, more than you need every year, so that you have the resources to invest. I knew a lot of realtors that as soon as they had kind of covered their expenses for the year, they took their foot off the gas. And that's nice from like a work balance, life balance perspective. But the problem is, 20 years later, you haven't really gotten that much farther ahead.
Yeah.
Versus if you're able to like invest a little bit into a 401k and a little bit into, real estate, over 20 years, I remember like kind of midway through my career, I think I realized one year that just the asset appreciation of all of my properties that I owned was significantly higher than my income for the year.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, I'm making more money owning these properties. Now that wasn't rental income. That's like appreciation plus
Sure.
rental income. The rental income was always more modest than you want it to be. You have to own a lot of real estate for that to cover everything. But it was a good asset appreciation year. I think the market had gone up, 15, 20% that year. And I had bought into some apartments and houses and, my personal home. And it wasn't a huge portfolio, but it was enough that it was like, wow, when you look at everything and multiply that by, add 20%, it was like $500,000. And I was just like, holy smokes. And then you keep doing that and that number can keep going up. Now,
Yeah.
Real estate doesn't always go up, by the way. It does go down. And
Oh my gosh, I wish sellers would hear this. They just think it's a sure bet right now. But unfortunately in our market, I don't know how it is in La Quinta or Portland, but we are seeing some prices going down.
I can say in my neighborhood, I think we've got more sellers than buyers right now. So usually that means that we got to see prices come down to meet expectations for buyers. And that's a healthy thing. I think you cannot have runaway growth without corrections, because people don't have runaway unlimited earning potential increases. You're not getting bonuses and raises every single year forever either.
Yeah.
A lot of people right now in tech are getting laid off, or they're not getting the bonuses they used to. There's a lot of sectors that are struggling, and or if they're doing okay, they're not growing really. And so if you've got if you've got everything going up around you, but your income's not going up, you're getting further behind. So,
Correct. But when you were investing, did you have like a target, like a percentage each year of your income that you wanted to put towards the future?
I was really just opportunistic. And I saw some other realtors that did an even better job than me at this, where they always had enough money in credit lines and cash aside that they could help someone solve a problem. And so there were times where I would have a buyer that had really negotiated super hard on a property and then decided it still wasn't a good enough deal for them and they walked away. But I'm thinking, holy smokes, I can't believe they're going to kill this deal. This is a home run. And so I would confirm with them, like, you're really out. This is not like you're trying to negotiate even harder and you want to come back in a week and try to get another 10 grand off. And they're like, no, screw that guy. That's not a good enough deal. And so I was like, okay, if you're really out, I just want to confirm you're not going to be mad if I go buy it. And I had that happen a couple times. And you know everything about the property, right? Because you've already done all the inspections and due diligence. And if it's an investment property, you've done your financial analysis. And so I had it happen where I had sold an apartment building with extra land to a builder. They tried to get the city to approve a subdivision. They wouldn't do it. And they said, I got to get out of this thing because I can't keep it. They said, I'd like to keep it, but I can't keep it because I've got a hard money loan on it that's like super expensive. But it was a really good property, really good deal. And so I bought it with the intent of holding it long term. And then later on, I was actually eventually able to get that lot division. And then I was able to work with that builder on, gave them the first shot at buying that lot because they wanted to build the new house in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
It just took like 5 years to do it. And they didn't have 5 years at 20% interest to be able to pull that off. And yeah, just other things where you see things in the market. I would have people call me and try to pitch me a property for a builder or developer because we did a lot of apartment development. And I would explain why it wouldn't work for an apartment builder because of X, Y, and Z factors. But if they were willing to sell it for, X price, I'd buy it as just a rental house. And knowing that the future potential is limited, but if I got good enough price just as a rental house on a big lot, it would still work. So there's a lot of just opportunistic stuff. My favorite one is I remember my girlfriend at the time, we were both in real estate, and she was trying to buy this little rental house. And she ended up buying a different property, so she couldn't buy both of them. So she ended up, backing out of this one because it was just a smaller deal. And she said, but you should buy it because it's a really good deal. And I said, well, I really don't. I've already got this other project. I'm really busy. I don't really need another flip. But if they'd sell it for 150, I'll buy it. And I thought it was the most ridiculous offer, but it was in like an estate and the owners didn't care. And they said, yeah, if they can close in a week, we'll sell it for 150. And it was worth like 180 or 190 even as a fixer. And this was like when the market was really strong and accelerating. And so I had people saying all the time, oh, there's no good deals. You can't find a good deal. And it's like, well, you're probably not asking the right questions or you're not offering the right solution because if you find a motivated seller and you can solve their problem and you can do it quickly, if time's more valuable than money to them and you can save them time and they'll give you the discount, then you're a great match, right? And then all of a sudden you come into a deal with equity. They get out of something that they don't want or need or can't maintain and move on because either, maybe they've got so much money it doesn't matter, or it's an inheritance. And so it's all free money anyway. They don't need to squeeze the last 5 or 10% out of everything.
Yeah.
So I would say that in any market, there's always really good opportunities if you're looking for them. And I was really picky. I did a couple flips. But I would say where I see people get into trouble is they try to convince themselves a deal works, even though it really doesn't, because they just want to do a deal.
Yeah.
And I think you got to really be conservative, and I always tell people, like, you're going to be wrong about something in this deal. Something is going to happen. The market's going to shift. You're not going to get the rent you thought you're going to get. The renovation's going to cost more, take longer. You're going to be wrong about a couple things. And so you better have enough wiggle room that you don't have to be perfect and right about everything, because you very rarely are right about everything in any deal.
Sure. So when you were investing, were you doing like the Burr method where you were flipping houses and then occasionally buying the rental with the profits, or like how did you build up your portfolio?
I would say I think I didn't do it in a real structured way like that. So it wasn't systematic. But I would say that doing flips is a really great way to raise capital, but it's very expensive tax-wise. Investing in real estate is very capital demanding. So you have to have a lot of cash to put down to do those. And even if you're doing owner carry stuff, it's still going to have some down payment requirement, which is expensive. And right now, debt is expensive, but the tax benefits are amazing long term, right? So you kind of have to decide what phase of your world you're in. Doing flips when you're making a ton of money every year is maybe not the best idea. So I had properties that I flipped, but I would keep for a couple years as a rental and then sell it because I wanted to be able to do an exchange. And you can't flip a property and do a 1031 exchange. But if I buy a property and essentially flip it, but then rent it for 2 years, now I can do an exchange. And unless you're worried about the market shifting in that time frame, or unless you have a need for capital right now, then that can be a much better strategy. It really depends. I think if you're scrapping together money from family and friends to do your first flip, then yeah, sell it, take the profit, pay the taxes, and try to do a couple more, because that's really a business. So that's fine. You're running a business. And eventually, though, those people generally will say, gosh, I'd really love to have some asset appreciation and some long-term capital gains as opposed to everything being just ordinary income all the time. And so I would say, again, flipping is a great way to raise capital and run a business and make money. Owning real estate is a really good, long-term is a really good way to get very wealthy. And then as you hold it longer, you can set up credit lines and refinances. And now you're not using hard money. You're not borrowing money. You can use your own money without paying like really high rates. So that's one thing I learned from one of my clients. He had built up a small portfolio of like 5 rental houses. And then when he did flips, he never had to use hard money because he had his credit lines. So he would just, he was
the bank.
He was his own bank. And so basically he was able to use all these rental houses as a piggy bank, and he was getting really low rates, like half of hard money. And he didn't have to get appraisals. He didn't have to wait for anything. He didn't have to turn any paperwork in because they were already all set up. So when he wanted to buy a flip, he would just, tap 2 or 3 credit lines, move it all into a checking account, wire the money to title, and close. And then as soon as he was done, he'd pay all the credit lines back. So he wasn't, no points. His interest cost was super low. And I was just like, it's interesting because it was his lender taught him how to do that. And his, lender put himself out of a job.
That's a good lender though.
But, client for life, and he referred him a million people, just like I have like clients that do so many rentals, they end up getting their real estate license because they're doing so much. And I lose a client, but they're, still a good friend and they refer me people and all that. So, I didn't have a real structured plan. I would say 2018 or 2019, I really thought our market was going to really start to slow down. And I think I was right, but COVID happened.
Yeah.
So going back to my statement about you're going to be wrong about some things, I sold a lot of properties right then when if I had waited 2 years, they would have been worth quite a bit more. But, that money got reinvested in other places and in other assets. And so I got that appreciation in other places. So it all works out as long as you invest in things you believe in and have a long-term plan.
Well, I love that. So you're talking about investing, and then eventually though, you had enough, money invested, enough assets, enough cash flow where you're like, hey, I don't have to necessarily run this real estate business anymore. And you started thinking about selling it.
Yeah. So, I'd been on the buy side of this equation the whole time. And I used to tell my agents, it's always good to sell your own house once in a while, just to remember how stressful and exciting and scary it is.
How horrible it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important because it's easy to get emotionally detached from that because we have to be, our job is to help people manage that. And we've got multiple people, and hopefully if you're doing good, you're selling multiple houses a month. So it becomes very familiar and easy, but when you do it for yourself, it's stressful again. But yeah, so I did it in 2 phases. So I was doing commercial and investment real estate with my team and also residential for a very long time. And our commercial and investment development side started to get really, really, really big. And we were doing very well. And I was really interested in expanding that and focusing on it. And I was hoping someone on my team would take over leadership for the residential book of business and really manage it, because I was managing both, and they're very different. You can't manage and market to people the same way when you're those two different groups, right? And so it didn't work out that anyone on the team wanted to take over the leadership role and take over that. And so we had to look outside.
What do you think that is? Like, if somebody was, it just seems like that's a great opportunity. Or were they, like, was it just not a good fit? Like, who would be a good fit for somebody to take over that type of a role for somebody, like in your business?
It's tricky. So, your top agent who's willing to call everyone and hustle and wants to make the most money possible might be concerned about taking time away from production, because keep in mind, you are taking time away from production. So
yeah,
if you can create, a profit share or some kind of revenue share thing that helps fill that gap, so their production's going to go down, but then they're going to get a management payment or fee or a percentage of sales, you can kind of bridge that gap. I think too, for some people, like for me, I'm a much better salesperson than a manager. And I did it out of necessity. But if I had found someone to partner with that was really good at management and HR, and I just stayed on the sales side, I think it would have been a better situation for my happiness and for growth. But I was just, at the beginning, didn't have the resources to do that. And so I just kind of took over and did it. And I did a lot of classes and had accountability friends, and I kind of like struggled my way through it, but it wasn't natural. And so I think some salespeople, they just don't want to be on the management side. But I think the truth is most people just don't want to do the work.
Okay.
I was watching Alex Hormozy, and I think there's a statement like only 5% of people are able to retire without family or government support.
Wow. Only 5?
And I think that that's right. I think that that's accurate in my experience. And
Wow.
so if you extrapolate that across like our industry, right? 1 out of 20 agents is going to be the one that's willing to take over and take the responsibility and stay late at work and be the one to like deal with the problems and the headaches and the stress of all of the extra things you have to do to manage a business versus just being an agent.
Yeah.
Because when people are agents, like, oh, I'm running a small business. Well, if it's just you, not really. Once you add payroll and legal and HR and accounting and bookkeeping, and you have to set up, ACH accounts and 401ks and health plans. Now you're buying a building, managing a building, once you're looking at 30 to 40K a month in overhead and, a bunch of staff that are paid whether you close deals or not. Now you're running a real business, and, it's not for everyone. You don't need to do it. There's a lot of people I know that are fantastic solo agents that do very well, and they don't want to build a big team or business. So I think that, the people I had on the team either wanted to focus on production or, they just didn't want to add the work, even if there was a little bit more money. And I think that's a mistake, but that's because I think differently. And I think like someone that wants to grow a business. And so the thing that's, I want to share that was kind of wild when I was looking to sell, because originally it was just the residential book of business. It was about 600 people. Half the people I called about buying my business and managing it were confiding in me that they were actually looking to retire pretty soon too.
Interesting.
Because I'm calling my peers, right? We've all been in the business 15, 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
And so they're all successful. They're all good. I was, calling people I knew that would do a good job, that were successful, that had good teams, that, built relationships, that worked by referral. And so, a big portion of them they were looking for the exit door pretty soon. Another group of them had a different model. My model was just to get as big as you can and still provide the level of service. And that was kind of our throttle. If we can't make the calls and do the work in the way we want, we're going to slow down our growth. And we did that. I stopped buying businesses after about 6 because I couldn't hire enough agents. We had 14 people, and that was like, we were like at a sweet spot where we were at capacity and everyone was successful, but I couldn't really add 50 more clients per agent and expect them to be able to handle it. It would have been too much. So we very thoughtfully stopped growing for a while, at least at that pace. We still grew with like referrals and sign calls and internet leads and things like that came in kind of organically, but I wasn't going to go buy 300 or 400 person client list and add that on top because we were already at capacity.
Sure.
So a lot of the agents I talked to said, well, I only want to have 300 clients and I don't want to have 600 more people to call and talk to. And some people didn't want to have to call people they didn't know personally. They were okay calling their client list of people they knew, but the idea of calling my list, even with my endorsement, seemed like outside of their comfort zone. And so it was actually a younger team that I ended up partnering with, and each agent on that team would get basically responsibility for about 200 clients.
Okay.
And so that's how we did it in a way that was setting them up for success. And for them to see this as a really great opportunity for growth, but not such an overwhelming task that they just kind of collapsed because, too big of an opportunity can be a problem too. Because I think everyone understood that this was a good business decision and it was going to make them money. And it was probably better than buying leads and all these other things. But now you've got to call 600 more people a year and manage those relationships. And if those people and those teams already feel overwhelmed and understaffed, they should say no to that. Because until you solve your staff problem and your capacity problem, you don't want to add more people because you're going to just fumble the ball and you're going to miss out on the opportunity, and it's going to be bad for both the retiring agent and the adopting agent.
Absolutely. So when you ended up selling that business to the 3 agents, how was it structured? Was it exactly how you outline in the book? Was it how many years was it? Like, what did that look like?
We did it like based on a partial handoff model, which is just a normal 25% referral fee as long as I'm engaged and like helping market and prospect to the database. And then if I get to a point where I'm like, don't call me, don't bug me, just good luck, then it would just trigger like a 3-year like phase out.
Okay.
But right now, I love talking to clients. I love helping people and answering questions. And if I could just do a couple hours of client consultations every morning, I'd be super happy. And then let someone else go do the CMA and do the marketing for the property and the negotiation. And that's kind of what I had done with my team, was built it up to basically I was doing a lot of the lead generation and client communication. And then once they're ready to look at houses, they would connect with a showing agent or a buyer's agent. And on the listing side, I had someone that all they did was list residential properties, and they were incredibly good at it. And so once they were ready to do that, they would connect. I would go to some of the appointments, but not usually. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm still, basically I've outlined, my top 100 people that I've got deep relationships with. And so that's the people I'm going to call and check in with and see, kind of just have a conversation. I'm not really selling anything. Just
maintaining the relationship.
Yeah. You're a person. I'm a person. How's life? What's going on? What are you dreaming about in the future? And if there's some real estate stuff that's going to happen, then let's get that on the calendar or figure out the details on that. And, that just naturally comes up. I randomly just got like 3 referrals last week for some apartment buildings, and it was all estate stuff. People are all these baby boomers. Unfortunately, the baby boomer generation is, handing the torch over to the younger generation. And
Correct.
So stay engaged with those folks, ask about people's grandparents, help solve those problems, because people are going to need to have co-housing situations, ADUs with grandma in it, in-home care. This is going to be a big, big thing over the next 10 years. And, selling the house so they can fund, more active care or a retirement community. There's a lot more levels to that now, which I think is really great. But I think that that's the opportunity for the next couple years personally, really for the next 10 years. Because those baby boomers are going to either be, the kids are going to be inheriting the properties and deciding whether or not to keep them. Or one of the people that called me, they lost their spouse and they've been together 50 years and, grandma doesn't want to manage the apartment building anymore. That was something, her husband did, and
she doesn't need to do it.
Or doesn't need to do it. It's time she's tired of painting and fixing stuff and dealing with property management.
Yeah.
And, she's going to exit out of this and put the money wherever, probably just into her accounts to pay for living expenses. And, keep in mind, some people want to like have their legacy go to the next generation, but a lot of people, they own the real estate so they can sell it one day and buy the Corvette and the RV and the beach house, and they're going to do that, and God bless them. I mean, 50 years of appreciation.
They put in the work.
Exactly. Use it for what you want.
Well, hey, Nick, we're running short on time, but I did just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. What is the best way if people have questions or if they're wanting to buy your book? Like, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best way to stay on top of resources and get access to a bunch of tools in the book is goldenhandoff.com. So anything we're offering with coaching or masterminding or any resources you need to do this are going to be a great starting point. And then that'll link to Amazon, where you can get the new version of the Golden Handoff and also the workbook. And so thanks so much for having me on. It's great to talk to you. And it means a lot to hear you tell the story of hearing the book and then implementing it. Because, when you're writing a book, it's a very lonely experience. And you're like, gosh, I hope people actually use this, because it takes a lot of time to write a book and took a lot of time away from much more fun things to do it. So I'm always happy to hear stories like yours. So congratulations.
Man, it changed my life. So thank you.